Now to a story that is all new tonight. For decades, families brought their children to Glen Echo Amusement Park to ride the carousel, laugh, and make summer memories. But until the 1960s, not all children were welcome. It's a chapter of American history most people have never heard about. A summer-long protest led by Howard University students and joined by members of the local white community, all banding together, demanding change. That pivotal moment is now the focus of a powerful new documentary, Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round. And joining us now is the film's producer and director, Ilana Trackman. Ilana, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we talked a bit about this. This is deeply personal for you. You grew up going to Glen Echo Park. You had a great time there, but 20 years or so after you'd been going year after year, you realized something was off and you learned more about the history of the park.
That's right. I never knew that the park was whites only, which is partially on me because I was looking at pictures my whole life, my childhood, of people having so much fun at the park, and I never registered the fact that I was only looking at pictures of white people, and that meant that communities of color were not allowed in, and what was a wonderland for some people was in fact a place of real pain and cruelty and exclusion for others.
So you started to learn the real story of what happened here. We have to take people back. This was, like now, a fractured time in our country. You had black students and a largely white Jewish community coming together in partnership, calling for significant change.
That's right. And according to my history advisors, it's probably the first time that a white community en masse assisted a black student protest.
So this was one of just many firsts, right? Because this came before the March on Washington that we knew about.
3 years before the March on Washington. And as well, it was the first time that the American Nazi Party came and counter-protested. It was Stokely Carmichael's first protest, and 10 of the 1961 Freedom Riders got their start on that picket line at Glen Echo Park.
So here was this idyllic community that saw itself as one of inclusion that soon becomes sort of the epicenter of this fight for civil rights. It was deeply transformative for the people on both sides who were part of this.
I think so. I mean, everyone that I spoke to used that word, formative, to talk about being involved because they were young. Most of them were 18 and 19 years old, and many of them went on to be significant leaders in the civil rights movement. And it was all been here under our noses, just like a dirty secret of Washington.
Why do you think it's taken this long for this history to find a presence, a broader presence in our national conversation?
Look, I believe that African American history has been stepped on, erased, diminished all over the place. And I think this is just one example. And I think in our liberal area, for the most part, it's been a source of shame. And so that's why.
So you embarked on this journey. It was 10 years in the making. What made you decide this was the way you were going to bring attention to this historic change at Glen Echo Amusement Park?
I was first motivated, honestly, by shame in my own ignorance, and that's what made me dig in. And learning about the two communities that came together, I was really fascinated. It felt personal because my father had been a Jewish labor organizer, and so many of the Bannockburn residents were also involved in the labor movement. And as I kept working on it, I was mesmerized by the visuals, you know, looking at pictures of the park, looking at footage of the park, and that time. It's so hard for any of us to understand what it was like when Jim Crow was king, and the color of your skin determined where you could go and what you could do.
And you think about how young these students were at the time,
That's
18,
right.
19, 20. To put their bodies on the line, and for the Jewish community to say, not on our watch anymore, too. All of them realizing that they could pay a huge price physically, mentally, emotionally for their actions.
That's right. And I don't think that we can underestimate the moment in time, which is only 15 years after World War II. And there were people on the line that were Holocaust survivors who were there protesting against members of the American Nazi Party. And so I think that that proximity really motivated people to make sure this doesn't happen again, or it doesn't happen here, even though Jim Crow had been going on for such a long time.
What's been the reaction so far to the documentary?
I have been blown away, honestly, especially by the fact that so many different communities feel like it's their story. Our first award was from the DC Black Film Festival. It received Best Documentary Feature, and it's just had success on the Jewish Film Festival circuit, on the mainstream film festival circuit, documentaries, and right now there's 3 theaters who are showing the film in the DMV. So.
And we can put that up on the screen too, because it's the Avalon, it's the Silver Spring AFI,
Silver Spring,
and the Cinema Arts Theater in Fairfax County.
That's right.
So people can go and watch this right now.
That's right now.
What do you hope people take away from this?
I hope people understand, what I didn't understand, that the civil rights movement was not just Martin Luther King and his I Have a Dream speech, that it was made up of regular people who didn't go to the bridge at Selma. They just stood up in their own communities. And I hope by getting to know them intimately, as we do in the film, people see that there's a place for them to have an effect on justice.
Wow, Alana Trackman, the documentary is called Ain't No Back to a Merry-Go-Round. I love how you pick the words for this, and it's deeply meaningful. And again, thank you for your time and your vision and for sharing this story with us. Long overdue, long overdue.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.